How many hearts have you broken with those great big beautiful eyes? Those great big beautiful eyes that tell such beautiful lies.
How many times have you kissed somebody like you kissed me then? I don't.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all ships at sea. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important message from the Prepared Mind Network.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. We are deep in the bunker coming at you live. It's Monday. It is December the 8th. And here we are. Yesterday was December the 7th. It was Pearl Harbor Day. I did not mention it during the zoo. I got tangled up in all those other thoughts. But yeah, I believe in 1941, December 7th, the attack on Pearl Harbor was on a Sunday in America, even though I believe it was Monday in Japan. In any event, don't want to get into the conspiracy theories over there. I listened to an interesting character, and I think I put a post out on not only X, but on YouTube as well, to a gentleman. His name is Chase something or other. I subscribe to his YouTube channel, talking about the psychology of brainwashing, propaganda, and mind control, and that this guy was actually worked for, with, and around the government, working on their systems. And it's very interesting, very informative that we are being controlled, whether we like it or not, or you could say we're being controlled and we just need to be aware of it. So it's not a literal control. It's just more of an influence. In any event, they're trying to control us. Definitely. I'm going to read a couple stories to you. Then I'm going to give you a question to think about. Then I'm going to give you another opinion. But what I want from you guys specifically is your questions, your comments. What is happening right now that concerns you the most? Here we go. Over in Europe, folks, in the European Union, which of course is sinking and losing support very, very fast amongst Europeans, because it's a bureaucratic institution, the European Union, that doesn't elect its members. No, it does not. But that European Union can sanction, penalize, fine, and in all manner destroy sovereignty in Europe. I think the people are getting to the end of it. So anyways, if we go to a minister of parliament, a top liberal globalist pile of shit over there, says that the Trump administration is, quote, an enemy of Europe. And here's another one, quote, we must stop behaving as a friend toward it, meaning the Trump administration. What I think is Trump needs to defund and leave NATO and defund and leave the United Nations, basically so they can feel the pain of their own ignorance. Yeah, without the United States of America, NATO is the European Union. I mean, we don't really hear from member states in the European Union. We just get a bunch of their bullshit. Anyways, I wanted to start with that, and then I'm going to bring up some more fun. The Trump administration has told the European Union, that they need to take the lead. In other words, spend the money for NATO defense by 2027, or the United States is going to leave. Well, to me, it kind of sounds like the same thing. We're leaving or we're leaving. Now, what gets me is here, folks, is do you think we're being controlled by the United Nations? Do you think we're being controlled by the World Economic Forum? Do you think our nation is being controlled by Muslims? Because they seem to be taking over here, just like they seem to be taking over in Europe. Or do you think we're being controlled, our nation anyways, by Israel? You know, who is this country being controlled by? Because it certainly is not America. It's certainly not being guided by our cultures and traditions. Our government, is not leading with law and order in mind. It's doing something quite different, in my opinion. But there's a logical fallacy that's being presented to Americans in American media, in American social media. We're being given a false narrative, a logical fallacy by world social media, world mainstream media, and world leaders. We're being told we have to choose between, well, Islam and Israel. And my thing is, those are terrible choices. Both of them are terrible choices. This country should be led and governed and administrated for Americans and Americans only. Americans first and Americans only. You see, that's the story they've given us, though, is, well, you either get all these Muslims, or you're an Islamophobe, or you want Israel, the greatest ally the United States could ever want, or you're an anti-Semite. You see, no matter what, we're being played against each other and even against ourselves. You're either an Islamophobe or you're an anti-Semite. Well, I would rather be both. I would rather be all American. You know, because to say I'm American is, well, it's Islamophobic. If I say American culture, American tradition, American history, American laws, well, that makes me a homophobe and a transphobe and all these other phobes. Call me all the names you want. Right? It's incredible to me watching how we're played. I'm going to read you a news story here. Right? This is a headline. And I want you to tell me if you feel like a racist after I change the words. Okay, I tip my hat a little bit to you, but a man was acquitted of stabbing another man in Portland. He was acquitted by the jury because the victim insulted the attacker after he was stabbed. Did the man who was stabbed, right? Was the stabbing person, was the attacker, the violent criminal, should he be acquitted because the man he stabbed insulted him after being attacked? Of course not, right? But now let me read you the words in the headline now. Black man was acquitted of stabbing a white man by a Portland jury because the victim shouted the N-word after being attacked. I'm so sick of N-word. You've got to be very weak and thin-skinned and fragile if words hurt. It's just stupid shit. It really is. But yeah, when you read it, black man acquitted of stabbing a white man by a Portland jury, you hear that and it's supposed to make us mad. And then when you hear that, well, the jury said, well, you called him the N-word, and therefore, he deserved it. But wait, no, that the shouting of the insult came after he was stabbed. They're pitting us against each other, folks. It's not, to me, black man, white man. It's American or criminal. It's American or foreigner, alien, right? American or illegal alien, criminal. You see, if we break it down and just leave the race out of it, it's not that they're from Somalia. It's not that they're blacks from Somalia. It's that they're not Americans who don't share our culture, who don't share our most basic fundamental morals. That's what makes them bad. And I can apply the same thing to all of Islam. And in fact, I think I can apply that to Israel as well. Because is it an American virtue? Is it an American cultural tradition to bomb the ever-loving shit out of a city, reduce it to absolute dust, and then murder children and women, and then sing songs, make music videos, have parties, celebrate it on television, and talk about how killing everyone, including women and children, is needed and is essential? That's not American at all, is it? But it is Israeli. Is it right to say Americans are superior and God has chosen us? Therefore, screw all other nations. No one's as good as us. We're supreme. We're supremacist, and international law doesn't apply. Right? All of those things are said by Israelis and Israeli government officials and Israeli spokesmen. And Muslims, for their part, say the same type of shit, that they're superior to us and that Allah is going to punish us and rain down wrath and hell on us. So that's why I just look back and go, I don't choose either of those. I don't even like what our own government does, because it's not acting in our best interest, and it's not acting the way we would want it to act. Make America great again, America first. Doesn't seem to be happening. Once again, Bimbo Pam Bondi is out there talking about this criminal faction and that criminal faction, and we caught them with this information, and the Clintons are bad, and then nothing happens. That is not American. It's as un-American as a government acting without evidence, manufacturing crimes, unlawfully arresting, manufacturing evidence, right? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But this is the world we live in right now. I tell you, folks, the mind control, screwing with people's heads. I think that's why I really always come back to, look, I'm going to share some opinions. I'm going to share some news. I'm going to give you some thoughts. We'll read your thoughts, right? Your comments, your criticisms, your suggestions, your ideas. And it's up to all of us to individually choose. Get your questions and comments in down to Mr. Uman, because at the half-hour mark, we're going to change over to the inner circle, and that's you guys who are here live on the preparedmind.club, where you can be a show supporter by hitting the premium button. Same with subscribestar.com, and we've also got X here. Now, let us continue. What is going on in the world? A lot of people complaining that it just doesn't feel like our country is being run properly. Well, it's not. It is a big, giant piggy bank, and the door is busted wide open. And nobody's doing anything about it. In fact, they're trying to destroy this country. I think I've said that. The Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats are actively trying to destroy the country. The Republicans are actively doing nothing about it. It's almost like they have to go out of their way to do nothing about it. Once again, we're being given a logical fallacy, a false choice. You're either a Democrat or you're a Republican. While I am a registered Republican, I am actually neither. Right? I am not a Democrat actively trying to destroy this country. I am not a Republican actively ignoring everything that's going on, because that's apparently what a Republican is these days. I am an American. I'm not a white American. I'm an American, right? And I think a lot of people are starting to say that, right? Forget all the stuff that goes in front of it: Black, Hispanic, Italian, Japanese, Scandinavian. No, just plain old American. And the people that are here trying to divide us are trying to keep us distracted with that. That's part of the mind control. I can point out all the bad people, and I will. Just like I said, hey, Trump fucks up, I will criticize him. Let me ask you this question. Do you really know how much money was stolen in Minnesota by the Muslim community there, which is a bunch of Somalians? How much was stolen by Muslims in Minnesota? If you said $5 or $7 million, that was just one case, folks. One case that the judge, of course, threw out the jury verdict and decided to let the people go. No, it's well over $8 billion. Hell, just a fraud network that was allowed to exist by Tim Walz, $8 billion. How much other welfare, phones, rent, everything. Billions of dollars. Unbelievable, folks. That's just Minnesota. We've got 49 more states. We're complaining about the U.S. government giving 80 or 60 or $100 billion to Ukraine. In Minnesota alone, $8 billion. That's enough to fund a fucking war. What are these Somalians doing with it? Well, I'm sure they're up to no good. Government, right? The Democrats will arrest anybody and do anything. Republicans won't arrest any fucking buddy or do anything. In fact, I got a story here about a woman named Jocelyn Ballantyne. She was the lead attorney who was assigned to the J6 pipe bomber case. You want to know why no one was caught? Because this is the same person who notoriously pressured the Proud Boys, famous for getting the Proud Boys to lie about Trump's involvement in January 6th. And if they didn't do what she wanted, that they would face years and years and years and years in prison. Now, I may sound a little Pollyannish, but isn't using duress, the power of government and threats, the threats of prison to cause somebody to change their testimony, isn't that lying? Causing someone to change their testimony? Isn't that called subornation of perjury? Isn't that a federal offense? Undue influence, coercion. It creates perjurious testimony. Yeah, that's what the Democrats are willing to do. And Republicans, don't worry, Bimbo Bondi isn't going to do a damn thing about any of it. Any of it. Any of it. In fact, I think if I heard it right, did she used to be a Democrat? Ooh, man, I think so. Yeah. Pam Bondi used to be a Democrat. I think one of her lead assistants is also a Democrat that, well, a deputy attorney general, just left the Democrat Party just in 2024 to join the Trump administration. It's funny, they're no good at prosecuting anybody or arresting anybody as long as Republicans are in charge. But boy, stand back. And oh yeah, by the way, Pam Bondi is an enemy of the Second Amendment. Don't ever forget who these people are, folks. Don't ever forget who they are. They are a bunch of liars and hypocrites, and they will try to divide us, both parties. Uman says, she was also allegedly friends with the Clintons. Yes, that was widely reported today, that Pam Bondi met with the Clintons, hung out with the Clintons, loved the Clintons. Wow. And the Clintons in the 90s weren't nobodies who just were like the Beverly Hillbillies going to, Beverly Hills. The Clintons going to Washington. It was no accident that they ended up there, because they are corrupt, were corrupt, always have been. And the people that control both parties in Washington knew it and knew they could hold Bill 100%, well, in the direction they wanted to go. Oh, yeah. And we end up with this. She was allegedly friends with the Clintons. Allegedly, a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, they were good buddies. And it's not like I said, nobody knew who they were. Hillary Clinton was involved in the Whitewater attack on, wasn't Whitewater, it was Watergate. Sorry about that. With Nixon. And she was thrown off the Democrat legal team. Why? Because she was corrupt. And the Democrats in the 70s, to show you how far they've fallen, didn't want anyone that corrupt anywhere near them. Amazing, folks. Everyone knows why Tricky Dick, President Nixon, resigned. It was because some CIA criminals broke into a Democrat office at the Watergate Hotel. And that was considered so bad and Nixon, what might have been spying on people. It was so bad he had to resign. Look what they're doing now. They're spying not on just political opponents. They spy on everybody. They don't just spy on political opponents. They hire Palantir. They hire Britain, England, London, MI6. They hire the Mossad to spy on all of us, the whole fucking country. The good, the bad, the Democrats, the Republicans. They're spying on all of us and gathering information on us so they can screw us and control us. Again, right? Ultimately, at the top, is there just one universal evil, bad organization and ruler? Yeah, I think so. I think at the very top, there is just one plain old evil that controls all sides. This is the concept I've developed over the years is, hey, who is at the top? Who is at the top? I tell you, what a mess. Once again, right, they want us fighting not only with ourselves, trying to understand who we are, but fighting with everyone else out there. This is interesting, right? The communist reverse Uno mentality and consequences is kind of how I thought about this. As a student from the University of Utah has been suspended. Do you know what for? For exposing anti-white slander and rhetoric coming from a professor. So a professor is just spewing anti-white hatred, gets filmed. That film is released. So the student is punished for it. Well, students, folks, I think everywhere in America need to stop attending these universities and transfer maybe to a real school or get a real education in the trades, learn how to be a plumber or an air conditioning specialist or a mechanic or an airplane mechanic, something, a real school, not these indoctrination centers for anti-American communist hate, where they teach you to hate yourself. Unbelievable stuff going on. Absolutely unbelievable. I tell you, folks, they want us to hate ourselves and hate each other and be absolutely confused. They want you to pick a team and fight for it. You ever think about that? Why did you pick a team to root for that team? Is it the name of the city? Was it the color of the uniform? Was it one or two players that you thought were great so you would like the team? You ever stop and look at the whole team and think none of them are worth a shit? It's just a fucking team. Well, that's kind of it with politics. Are you a Democrat or a Republican, right? It's kind of interesting. How about this? Social violence, folks, is coming. And social violence that is going to happen is based on partisan ideology, picking a team. I'm going to start with this. Tim Pool, who's a social media influencer, says somebody shot at his house. Here's the quote. Last night, a vehicle approached our property and opened fire. Well, yeah. Pick a team so shooting in a house is wrong, so you're supposed to pick the Republican side. Well, what are the Republicans doing to fix this? Nothing. They're allowing it. But when it comes to the partisan violence, folks, understand the Democrats are being encouraged to shoot first, to hate white people, to hate Americans, to hate black Americans. And in fact, I don't, let's try this. Black American, good. Anti-American blacks, bad. Hispanic Americans, good. Anti-American Hispanics, bad. Right? Because they're anti-American, but they want to pose it a different way, right? Black conservative or black Democrat. No, Americans. And it's interesting, folks. The violence is coming. It really is. Are you prepared? Are you prepared for it when it starts? Are you going to return fire? How are we going to fix this problem? right? What the Democrats are doing is actively telling their partisans, the Democrat followers, that violence is okay because they're Nazis. They call us Nazis so they can kill us. They call us Hitlers so they can kill us. They call us fascists so they can kill us. Now, on the Republican side, they're telling us, don't be racist. You need to be tolerant. Don't act out. Don't protect yourself. Don't protect your family. Don't try and stop this LGBTQ pedophile stuff. Don't try and stop this racist anti-white stuff. You know, you should be guilty and feel guilty for the Holocaust and for slavery. Where do you think all that bullshit comes from? Do you think that's American? Shouldn't we be proud to be American, whether we're black or white or Hispanic or Asian or Native American? We should be proud to be Americans. Instead, they're shaming us, aren't they? Yeah. They're shaming Republicans, and they're encouraging Democrats because they need us to fight with one another so we don't see what they, the bad guys, are doing. Once again, I don't choose one side or the other. You anti-Semite? No, sorry. I don't like Israel. I don't like what they do. I don't like their fucking attitudes. Muslims, I don't like them. I don't like their religion. I don't like their attitudes and what they do. I am an American, and I want people to stand up and protect America, protect the people of America, not a political ideology. I don't want people to always defend a social ideology that's destructive. Right? There's nothing destructive about being American and wanting equal rights and saying we're all equal. Well, the Israelis don't like that, and the Muslims don't like that. Hell, the anti-American blacks don't like us to say we're all equal, because the anti-American, anti-white blacks that are out there are calling for a white genocide. They're literally saying the words, and it's all over social media today, that we should all be killed, that white people need to be exterminated. The anti-white, anti-American blacks are calling for the extermination of white people. That's okay. The Israelis are over here saying that we should all be slaves and serve them. And the Muslims are over here saying they're going to use Sharia law and take control of us and tax the hell out of us, enslave the women as sex slaves, and kill us too. Who is on our side as Americans? Well, Europeans don't seem to be standing behind us as nation states. Individuals, yes. Countries, not really. Canada? Canada is suicidal. Europe is suicidal. It's a fucking mess, folks. It really is. At some point, I think things are going to cut loose. At some point, I think it's going to get nasty. Let me tell you about, let's go back to Tampon Timmy up in Minnesota. Twinkle Toes, Tim Waltz. His daughter went on a nasty, profanity-laced bitch session against President Trump and claimed that, Republicans are cult members, and they're driving by her house screaming, "Retard." They're not cult members. They're just people who are fed up, and they're close enough to make a difference. I'm glad they're screaming retard. But, the little faggot Tampon Timmy, Tim Waltz calls Trump and Americans, you and me, Nazis, homophobe, white supremacist, racists, and every dirty name. He has called Trump and us. And he told, and this is, I believe, basically, literally, he said that Democrats need to turn up their harassment, their nasty harassment on everyone. But then when we call him a retard, we're not calling for his death. We're not calling for him to be murdered. We're not calling for him to be assassinated. But he's crying because he feels threatened that violence could happen. Well, there's no violence. People are just laughing at you, calling you a retard because we're overly tolerant. right? But hey, tip on Timmy, enjoy your violence, asshole, but relax. It's just the R word for now. Okay, folks, it is Monday. We're off to a great start. Let's have some fun. I think I want to do, your guys' thoughts. It is now time for the Inner Circle. Yeah, maybe I've shed my identity politics armor, right? It's just American. If you want to say I'm white or I'm black or whatever, fine. As long as you're an American. You can't be an Israeli American because every last one of them says, well, Israel, you got to have Israel in there. No, we don't. You talk to anyone, you listen to the speeches by Ilhan Omar and that fruitcake, pointy chin, bulbous headed fucking loser who was going to be mayor of Minneapolis. That guy, they all say they serve Somalia. Just like Ted Cruz, U.S. Senator from Texas, says he's in Congress as a senator, and his primary function, the number one thing he wants to do is support Israel. No, America first. Mr. Ooman, let's get into it. What do you guys want to talk about? And hey, we got some from Chin Music stepping in. And he says, a man showed up at Benny Johnson's house ranting about. Well, first off, Benny Johnson is Steven Crowder or a Charlie Kirk type of guy. He seems very gentle, and he's got some nerdy glasses, and he looks like someone that, who gives a shit? He's not a rabble rouser. Anyways, he looks like a nice, tolerant Republican white guy. Anyways, Chin Music says, a man showed up at Benny Johnson's house ranting about and looking for him. He went to the neighbors' houses trying to find him. He was believed to be armed. Chin Music says they aren't going to stop. No, they're not. They're not. And I'll tell you why. They're not going to stop because they're being encouraged. And their acts of violence and violent attitude is being allowed. So, by the way, this propaganda, indoctrination, mind control psychologist guy who's exposing everything. He even did a 25-minute video on Charlie Kirk and why he is dead, why he was killed, and why it was fine, and everything else. The guy's name is Chase Hughes, Hughes, Chase Hughes channel on YouTube. I recommend going there and just perusing it, seeing what you think. They're not going to stop, Jen. There's no reason to stop. There's no punishment. There's no punishment at all. In fact, if violence happens and you are a Democrat, the first thing you do is you want to run to social media. You want to brag about it, laugh about it. You want to encourage it. You want people to feel like that's the right thing to do and the right thing to believe. They're literally calling for violence on a grand scale. We're right down here at the very beginning, the very bottom. But they want it up here. Remember when Trump was shot? What did the Democrats do? They ran to social media. They filmed videos saying, we need better shots. Be a better shot next time. Go get more training next time. Ed was always do better, very close, nice try. Just one more inch and we'd all be happy. They would just write shit like that all day. Charlie Kirk's assassination, happy. Understand, folks. Guess what? Let me just say, what if all the scumbags, un-Americans in Chicago took up arms and started walking through Chicago suburbs, killing all the Republicans, killing anyone who has a Trump sign in their front yard? What do you think Democrats would say? Good. Trump is Hitler. And if you follow Hitler, then you're a fascist and a Nazi and you should die too, right? They do. They believe that. I remember back in 2016, this is after my divorce, right? And Trump was getting elected. And my sons told me that the replacement John would scream and yell and throw an absolute Trump derangement syndrome fit if you saw a Trump sign. And this is an extremely rural, extremely Northern California, where just about everybody was fucking Trump. They were pro-Trump, hoping he was going to save America. Yeah, they throw a fit. They hate him so bad. Trump derangement syndrome is a mental illness, folks, and they want the violence. They encourage the violence. It is coming. They're not going to stop, and I think Chin Music is absolutely right. It's just they're not all doing it. But what happens, folks? What happens if more than just one lunatic pops his fucking cork? What if there's a truckload of them or a carload? They get in their car and they all hop out with their guns and just start going down the street and shooting up any house that has a Trump sign. Is that okay? Will Democrats laugh and laugh and laugh? You bet they will. Celebrate it? You bet they will. Oh my God, they went through that neighborhood and shot up every Trump house. Ha ha ha. Good. Serves you right, you bunch of fucking Nazis. Yeah. User, that would be C. Psychology 101. Here we go. Bad behavior with no consequences is likely to continue. Human psychology. People, they need to find out what the rules are, where the limits are, what the line is that you don't cross. Right? If there's no punishment, then no crime is committed. They know what they've done is wrong. Stealing the cookie out of the cookie jar is wrong. Beating up your little brother for no reason is wrong. Right? We know what wrong is, but if you get away with it, fuck it, why not? Why not? I beat up my brother and stole his cookie. I did a 2-for-1 and didn't get in trouble. Thanks, Mom, for letting me get away with that. That's essentially what they're saying and doing. And other kids are looking, going, well, fuck, if little Timmy over there can beat up his brother, steal his cookie, and his mom saw everything and didn't do nothing, I'm going to try that shit. And then that kid tries it, gets in trouble, and says, but Timmy's mom didn't do nothing. So then the other parent's like, well, I wonder why Timmy's mom didn't do that. Right? They all start believing their own shit. They all start eating their own cooking. Is this what's coming next? Are we going to expect group attacks? In other words, are we going to get the purge? Once again, I can't tell you when it's time to eliminate non-Americans. I don't know when to tell you to eliminate people who are criminals because they're not identifying themselves. They're all rooting for it. They're all hoping for it. They're all laughing about the killings. And like I said, 4, 5, or even 6 people that live around you vote Democrat. That's half the country. Half the country thinks this shit is funny and cool. And they encourage this bad behavior. They're glad there's no consequences for the people that shot Charlie Kirk. Yeah, they arrested the guy that likes to have anal sex with a guy who thinks he's a girl, but also an animal and a furry. I'm not believing that. I still don't believe that's the killer. I just don't. It's a patsy. Every time. Look, in fact, this guy, Mr. Hughes, he said, you don't kill people who no one cares about, who there's no consequence for, that doesn't make a message. So killing Charlie Kirk was a very loud message to everybody. The guy that's exposing the bad people is going to be killed, and that's to keep other people from wanting to do what Charlie Kirk is doing. Right? They shot him not because he was ineffective, because he was too effective. Right? And so that's why the left celebrated so much as well. Because, got rid of that guy. He was causing too much trouble for us. And yes, now, by the way, TPUSA is exposing itself as a very nasty little organization. Redneck Roughneck says, in our politics, one side is skeert and the other side is glad of it. I don't believe I know what the word skeert means. Somehow I missed that day in school. Scared. One side is scared. Skeert. I didn't figure that out myself. Ooman did. And let me know. Yeah, the other side's glad of it. Yeah, but we as Americans are on our heels because when we were Republicans, we were told to be tolerant of the homos and tolerant of the cross-dressers, and tolerant of transgenders, and tolerant of all the lies coming out of our religious enemies. And I say religious and enemies because there's two religions that hate white people. They hate Americans. They hate America. They hate our Constitution. They hate everything about us. Oh, don't worry. They hate Europeans too. It's not just America, but they hate Europeans, right? They do. They hate us. And so they're happy to scare us and call you names. The reason the left is the side that's glad of all the fear out there, because they're the ones committing acts of violence and getting away with it. They might get arrested and just let go by a judge. Look at all these fucking criminals that are multiple offenders, 10, 20, 30. I swear, I'm not lying. Over 50 times they've been arrested for violent crimes, and the judge just lets them back out on the street, and they go and stab a girl in the neck, or they squirt fuel and light some girl on fire, or they beat the ever-loving shit out of people on the street and kill them, or come close to killing them, and they just get away with it. Of course. And of course, Republicans are scared because if you stand up, you're an anti-Semite, or you're an Islamophobe, or you're a homophobe, right? Or you're a racist, or you're a white supremacist, or you're Hitler. See, they've got us on our heels. It is time to stop being scared and time to start being an American. Let me take you back, 250 years. What were Americans doing? They saw and knew who the tyrants were, and they identified them as such. British redcoats, the police, if you will, who were violating their rights, the judges who were violating their rights, the governors of the colonies who were violating their rights, and King George, who was violating their rights. And what did they do? They would capture them and tar and feather them. They would take them out of their homes, take them out of town, and leave them for dead. You've been exiled from this community for being a piece of shit. Or they just shoot them. They were putting lead inside the enemy before the war started, folks, because they got tired of being abused. They got tired of it. They stood up. They were stacking redcoats and Brits that were on the side of the king, that were willing to violate their rights. What do we have in America now? Our rights are being violated individually and collectively. By who? By Democrats, by Republicans, by foreign religious leaders who hate us. They're all violating our rights. The Somalis in Minnesota that have stolen millions and yes, even billions of dollars. That is a violation of our rights. It is a crime that they committed, and they committed knowingly and intentionally and continue to commit those crimes. That is not just a crime. It is a violation of the trust, goodwill, and generosity of real Americans. 10 years ago, you probably could have come to anyone, regardless of color, Asian, black, white, Hispanic, Native American, and said, should we take a little bit of pity on these Somalis? I mean, they live in a terrible country with a terrible government, right? It's one of the worst civilizations on planet. They're fucking totally inbred. Should we help them out? And I know I would have said, yeah, let's give these people a chance. Because, of course, I'm completely fucking ignorant of who they are. I'm completely ignorant of what they're about, of their belief system, of their intentions, and of their goals. Well, now that I know who they are, how corrupt they are, what their intentions are and their goals, I absolutely want them out of this fucking country. Now, I don't want to pull in Israel and say, well, let's just bomb Minnesota and Minneapolis to the ground and just kill all the people. I'm not, shit, it's not like I'm an Israeli wanting to do that. No, but we can go to them, arrest them, and say, you're getting out of the fucking country. You're going to go right back to Somalia because you keep telling us how good the food is and, how much you like it there and how much you miss it and how much you love Sharia law. You get to go back there. Yes, indeed. Well, in fact, you know what? There is a Jewish dude, very powerful, rich, wealthy dude, who was speaking at some sort of Jewish summit in New York City. He was telling Jews that they need to go live in Israel because of Ma'am Danny and what he's doing in New York City. I say we just tell everyone, you all fucking leave. If you've got citizenship in another country, you go back and live there. We don't need you here. If you're from Somalia or fucking Tunisia or Morocco or whatever country you're from, if you can't put your hand on a Bible and swear allegiance to the United States of America, then get the fuck out. And I don't care if you're a Muslim. You see, the thing is, with the Talmud or the Quran, put your hand on that and you can lie all day long, because those books tell them to lie. You lie to fool the infidel. You lie to fool the goy. Okay, the Gentiles, the Americans. This is what it's about, folks. This is what this is all coming down to. The masks are coming off. We're finding out who the enemies are, and I've even figured out why they're doing it. Why are the white people in Washington, D.C. allowing us to be destroyed? Why are the white people in Europe in charge of those countries allowing them to be destroyed? It's because they think they're part of the elite crew. They think they're in the big club that none of us are in. It's not about color. It's about who you are as a human. Are you moral and decent? Right? Does your religion tell you to be a decent person, or does it tell you to lie, cheat, steal, murder, kill, and every other thing? Right? This is what we're facing at this point. Absolute corruption at every level in the country, in fact, around the world. And it's getting nasty. It's getting nasty. I mean, I love islanders, folks. I've been in the Pacific Islands. I've been in the Caribbean Islands in my life. But get this. At least 19 people were injured. At least 10 people were killed when a car rammed into a Christmas market in the island nation of Guadeloupe, or Guadeloupe, if you wish. That's I believe it's a French island, a French territory, French colony. That's right, down in the Caribbean islands. Aren't those supposed to be nice people? Yeah, they play the reggae music. They're all nice. You know, and you know what the mainstream media wants you to believe? That it was a stoned islander that rammed into these. No. It's likely that these people, the 29 of them, the 10 dead and 19 injured, were rammed at high speed because the person driving the car hates bacon, hates Christians, hates freedom, hates European culture, hates Caribbean culture. You know who it was. You get a great idea because it was a Christmas market. Unbelievable. Mr. Uman, who's next? I know we got lots to talk about. I'll try and go a little faster here. I know we got a lot of people want to have their thoughts up here. Diving Frog said there's a lot of holes in the desert, and in those holes rest a lot of problems. Yeah. Having lived on the high desert side of Northern California, I did hear that there were a lot of holes in the desert that needed to be filled in. And I think there's a whole lot of holes left to go. And once again, I'm going to remind you that you need at least one high-quality shovel for SHTF, because you do not want to leave dead bodies lying around. And you know what the thing is about having to dispose of dead bodies? It is a lot of work to dig a grave. Even a shallow grave is a lot of work. And the more people that need to be stopped from committing their crimes against Americans, the more we've got to dig holes. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I'm not making light of it, folks. It's a lot of work to bury things. Everyone talks about, yeah. Robin says you're not safe even in the boonies if they want to get you. Well, I mean, there's the definition of boonies, Robin. If they want to come after you, they can come after you. I don't know if all of these enemies of America truly understand what the swamp is about. I don't know if they truly understand what the mountains are about. I don't truly know if they understand what the desert is about. Right? Like, you don't want to go fight in Afghanistan if you've never trained in the desert. That's why the military does desert training. The military does cold weather training. The military does mountain training. It's so you learn about those environments and you learn how to operate in them. The people that would want to take us out, the anti-Americans, this is just my opinion. And we're not safe. No, I think you're right. We're never safe, but you have a serious, massive tactical advantage to not only the environment you're in, but the area around your bunker, your safe space, your bug out location. You know it. You know the area well, and you can set things up to funnel the bad guys into, shall we say, the killing fields. Right? You set up obstacles and create paths that lead them right into, well, a sleepy time nap. But I don't know if people in the boonies need to worry about it because, well, the bad guys want to go into the suburbs. Remember, they got tired of burning down the inner city and said, well, we're coming to the suburbs. This was back in 2020. And they did. And in some cases, they set the suburbs on fire. In other cases, they got shot. That didn't make it to the news a whole lot. They were met with force at the edge of those suburbs and houses. Mikey G says, always return fire, peace through superior firepower, and peace through the elimination of enemies. The way you win a battle is how you win a war, when there's an absence of the enemy. And that's how they look at us. One group wants to approach us. One religious group, folks, wants to approach us directly and be the ones who commit the acts of violence with a sword or with a knife or a machete, or God help us if they get guns. The other group wants to eliminate all of us by pitting us against each other, pitting blacks against whites, pitting Muslims against Christians. They want to eliminate us and have us eliminate each other for their benefit. Well, the Muslims are very, at least, honest and direct about it and just want to come and kill us directly. It's going to be a mess, folks. Understand. There's belief systems out there. And I think this is important. Maybe I'll have to cover this a little more in depth. Belief systems. Even though I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed, kind of white, I've never been a white supremacist, thinking that, well, you know, I'm better than everyone else and, you know, I'm Hitler's wet fucking dream. No. Not at all. But there are people out there who think they are superior to you, me, and all of us. And they're willing and wanting to kill people over it. I think that's pretty fucking awful. All right, let's continue if we shall, Mr. Uman. Let's see. We've got Uman. He says, saw a report that said the Pacific hemisphere is cooling and the African hemisphere is heating. We must stop immigration because it is lopsiding the earth and causing climate shift. Yeah. Well, we gotta, you know, the Pacific hemisphere. You mean the Pacific Ocean or yeah, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, everything is our fault. And so it's ridiculous. I think the amount of impact that human activity has on carbon dioxide, which is plant food, when plants make food for animals and for humans, so it's plant food. Anyways, yeah, they're just trying to control us. It's a means of control through fear, through guilt, and through greed. Those are the things that the bad guys are using to try and convince us that, yeah, the African hemisphere, oh my God, it's heating up. We got to help those people. Let's bring them to Europe and America and have them bring all their problems and diseases. Not a good idea. Robin says immigration is a different type of heating things up climate change with no cooling off effect in sight. Yeah, well, yeah, the cooling off effect is occurring. It's just not happening fast enough. It's not happening fast enough. You know, I don't think that Trump and his immigrations and customs enforcement organizations through the Department of Homeland Security are removing enough of the illegals fast enough. I don't think they are. They're not removing them fast enough, and they're not removing enough of them to make an impact. But even at the small level that they're working at, guess what? Right? There's probably more being born every day in our country than they are being removed and sent home. Right? We're not going to be able to reduce the number of them quick enough to make a difference because the rate and level of drag they're putting on everything. They do need to end all welfare. I really think that would be a hell of an idea. End welfare altogether for anyone who is not an American. You're here as a privilege, by permission only. And the assistance needs to be over. You guys need to, and I don't even want them to get jobs. I just want them to get the fuck out of the country, period. Literally, that's where I'm at. I want to get them out of the country. Literally, I'm done with them. And the lies need to stop with the media and with police reports, right? Like Jake Tapper actually was required. CNN was required to apologize because the pipe bomber, who is a liberal, anti-American, and also black, this suspect is, they called him, Jake Tapper on CNN called him a white man. He's an un-American. He's a non-American. He's an anti-American. Boys, when as Americans wake up and get sicker and sicker of this bullshit, their teeth are going to be really sharp. And they're going to take a bite out of communists and race grifters, illegals, and, look out. Okay, let's continue if we shall. Redneck Roughneck says, hey, can't these people just get off my lawn? I just want to be left alone to live my life, but we no longer keep politicians in line by tarring and feathering them. I really believe that politicians need to be held accountable. What form or fashion does that take? Well, let's see. Tim Walz had his political enemies assassinated. I mean, allegedly, according to the guy that pulled the trigger, that he was hired to do that. They also, and that was shooting at Democrats. Well, in Washington, D.C., they had, Republicans shot. We had Trump shot at. We had Charlie Kirk shot at. That's not very nice. But how do we hold them accountable? How about tarring and feathering as long as you don't kill them? Should that be acceptable? How do we hold politicians accountable for violating our rights? Not just passing a law, but merely suggesting that someone's rights be violated. Should there be a penalty for that? Why is there no fucking penalty for politicians who grossly violate our rights? The First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth and Fifth, right? How do we get justice? Police have an insurance policy. What for? So when they violate someone's rights, they get sued. The insurance pays the claim. That's an insurance policy. So there's no real consequence for them violating people's rights. There's no accountability. Yeah, that person got $200,000 for spending 2 days in jail after being arrested. Okay, so now they get a brand new car and a couple of nice vacations. It doesn't stop the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. How do we get rid of these people? How do we punish these people? How do we hold them accountable? All of these issues are going to need to be addressed before we can have our America back. The America that was founded on the U.S. Constitution, right? It's not just a rule book, right? The U.S. Constitution created the government. We, the people, created the Constitution. How do we get back to that? Well, tarring and feathering, not such a bad idea. But I'm not suggesting anyone do that because that would be a crime. Well, violating my rights is a fucking crime. Is it not? Yeah, it is. Violating my rights is a crime. And when politicians do it, they're not held accountable. I think there's a problem there. By the way, NASCAR star Michael Annett, age 39, dies suddenly. Another super athlete dies at age 39. Take a wild guess. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. I'll see you guys 0 Dark 30 tomorrow.
Ho, 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 ho.